if Crawford wins, it would be, it would be surprising, and it would be unexpected, and it would make history. Now, Canelo's also going to make history if he wins, but not, it's not going to be unexpected history. It's just going to be history repeating itself. Which is different. But, when it comes to this fight, what I want to do today, is talk about what each fighter could do to win the fight and what they shouldn't do if they want to win the fight. I want to start with Terence Crawford first, because he's the one that's going to have to ice skate uphill, as they say. So what should he do to win against Canelo? The first thing you got to understand is he has to be different than he's ever been. He has to be something he's not, basically, is what I'm trying to say. He has to, he has to fight the fight that Canelo doesn't want at moments where he doesn't want to, and he has to not fight the fight that Canelo wants to fight when he wants to fight it, when Canelo wants to fight it. In other words, just do the opposite of what he wants to do at particular points of the match, and some of that's gonna take some film study, and some of that you're just gonna have to know how to do that, naturally, and some of it maybe you figure out during the fight, because it's one thing to study film, it's another thing to be in there against the guy, trying to do the stuff, trying to do the thing. But yeah, film study could help. Film study could definitely help. It helps you catch patterns and helps you, it helps you figure people out. What do they do when? When he moves to his left, he likes to throw hooks. Or when he moves to his right, which is your left, he likes to throw 1-2s or 1-1-2s. Stuff like that, little patterns like that, you can catch. Everybody has them. Because we're humans, and humans are creatures of pattern, and habits. And so, yeah, you could do that, right? And with someone like Canelo, he's not that complicated of a guy to figure out when it comes to patterns. Because Canelo in himself, he's not really relying on crazy combinations, or a large amount of punches or anything like that. And it's easier to catch patterns that way. An example is, red, blue, red, right? You'll remember that easy, red, blue, red. It gets complicated when you go red, red, blue, blue, red, red, blue. Or blue, blue, red, 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 blue. Then you start throwing in orange, and then you get more things. You get more patterns. So what I'm trying to say is, patterns of 3 are easy to catch. But it doesn't mean that Canelo's easy to figure out. Canelo uses that to his advantage. Uses the simplicity of his low output as an advantage. And also he could afford to do that because he's a power puncher. And he has time to rest within each spurt that he has. Why? Because he hits you with a 3-punch combination max. Those are his max, in my opinion, successful combinations. Is a 3-punch combo, right? And he may miss with 2 of them, or he may land all 3, or he may just land that one. The point is, all of those shots are gonna hurt. And it doesn't really matter where they hit you at, especially if you're coming from a lower weight class. You know, you're gonna feel that shot, and it's gonna give you pause. Even if you don't think it does, it's gonna give you pause, because your body, bro, your body is a living organism. You know, even if your brain says, "Oh, we're gonna keep on going," your body is going to not want to keep on going. Being used to the weight and being able to fight at that weight is more important than packing pounds and stuff like that. And knowing what to do against different types of fighters, and being able to take the punch of different types of fighters. I got hit flush one time by a guy who weighed 300 pounds, flush straight up in the head. And I remember what I saw was like one big star. Like, you know what when people say you see a light at the end of the tunnel when you die. I saw that for a split second. Shoop! It went black and I saw a star. Now he didn't drop me and he didn't hurt me, but I saw that, and that gave me pause. You know, they gave me pause. They gave me like, maybe I should not get hit flush by this guy ever again. You know, and it's crazy because hard punches, they don't hurt, bro. They're not painful. They just run through your body like a shockwave that shuts you down. You know, and that's pretty much what power is, dude. Like, it's not like when people say, "Oh, that guy got punching power," it doesn't hurt, dude. It's almost like they turn off a switch on your body that says go to sleep, and you go straight to sleep. You know, now at that time when I got hit flush, I was able to resist the punch and continue to fight. The guy didn't notice that he hurt me, but I acknowledged, you know, that he hit me hard. I'll tell you that was a good shot. You know what I mean? You're always gonna get caught somehow. Sometime you're gonna get caught. It's just the nature of the game. But why am I explaining this to you? At the time I was 195, and the guy that hit me was 300 pounds, and I was accustomed to fighting guys 300, 200, and above, right? 200 and above. It is just the way I was training at the time, just sparring guys that were that size. But I was accustomed to that. And these guys, even though they were bigger than me, they weren't accustomed to fighting at that weight class. And so they seemed like chumps to me. You know, it seemed that way, but it wasn't that way. I could feel the power there. I could feel the ability that if they could, meaning if they had better experience and stuff, they would. You know, but what I'm trying to say is that the weight's gonna be a problem. And the weight's gonna be a problem because he's never been in this weight class. He's never punched in this weight class, and he's never moved in this weight class. And he's never moved his body in this weight class. He's not accustomed to fighting guys like this, even though he may be sparring guys like this at a regular basis. Man, dude, like, one thing is sparring and another thing is there's money on the line and the other guy's gonna try to kill you. There's a difference. There's a big difference. Because listen, man, Canelo's gonna try to get that extra bread, dude. He's gonna go for it. Now he's being modest and he's saying that if the knockout comes, it comes. But I feel like he's gonna try to go for it. Now Terrence, he's not talking about no knockout. He said he's gonna try to win, you know, come out on top regardless. But I think that's what he has to do, man. He has to do Mayweather or a Bebo. You know, try to do what those guys did. Not in their styles, because you don't have their styles. but in your own way. I think he should come out southpaw, and I think he should fence with Canelo as much as he can. Of course, the obstacle to that is going to be that he's going to get tired somewhere around. I mean, I don't know. I think he's going to get tired pretty quick because of the new weight. He's already, not that. um, he's not that maneuverable. He's not a maneuverable guy. He's not a guy who moves around a lot. He's a guy who moves around you and stays within the mid range and sometimes even inside. He's not an outside fighter. A lot of people like to think that, but he's not. Um, but I think he needs to fence around Canelo and try to figure out his modes and try to hit him to the gut as much as he can. That straight jab to the body, and not engage when Canelo feels like he wants to engage. And if he does that, he could win a decision. If he does that, okay, that's my advice to Terrence, and I think Terrence can do that, and he can survive for longer if he does that. I still think that he's going to get tired because, like I said, it's going to be a new weight for him. It's going to be a new body for him. And it's just going to... Look, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of something in the Bible when David was going to face Goliath. And David... this is in the Bible, by the way. You guys could go read it if you want. But David was about to fight Goliath. And Goliath was this big, giant dude, right? And he was like 7 feet tall or something like that. He was one of the giants from the Bible, and nobody wanted to face Goliath because he was a big dude. He was a big guy. His lance was big. He was just a big guy. And David's like, I'll fight him. And then the king was like, you'll fight him. Okay, you'll fight him, whatever. And he's like, here, take my armor because I ain't gonna use it. Just take my armor. And David puts on the armor and he's like, bro, this is too heavy, bro. This is too heavy. I can't move in this thing. I'm just going to do what I do. I'm going to do my thing. I've beaten up a lion. I've beaten up a wolf, and to protect my sheep. So I'm just going to do what I do to fight them. And I'm going to go out there and do what I do. And it was like, what is it you do? And he's like, I throw rocks. I throw rocks at people. And by the way, he had a weapon called a slingshot. And I don't know if you know about slingshots. They are very fast weapons. They're an ancient weapon that breaks the sound barrier. So it's an ancient weapon with modern age speed. Okay, so. But anyways, you put a rock into a cloth, sometimes made out of leather, and you swoosh it around or spin it around, and then when you create that energy of spinning around, you let go of one of the strands, and it releases a rock at a high velocity that breaks the sound barrier, and this is able to kill people and even penetrate armor. But anyways, or at least hit armor really hard. But anyways, he goes out there and he gets, I think he got 5 rocks or something like that. Or 7. I don't remember exactly how many. I think it was 5. And he puts them in his bag and he goes out there and he swings the thing and he kills Goliath with one shot. He was successful being himself. He didn't have to put on no extra armor and try to be like the warriors and try to be like the guy that was in front of him. No, he just went out there with his own weapons, speed over power, speed over, But now if he would have gone out there with armor and he would have taken out the sword and a javelin and a shield, he probably would have lost. Because he's not accustomed to using a shield, he's not accustomed to using a sword. He's not accustomed to fighting the armor. It's extra weight. You're not going to be able to move. You're going to be a sitting duck out there because you're going to fight the other guy's game. And that's pretty much the boxing lesson in that. Well, of course, it means other things as well, but to me, it means, have faith in the tools that you have with you already. Don't try to be something you're not because you're going into a situation that is unexpected or that it's new. But I mean, maybe this is advice that is too late, too little, too late, because the fight is going to be tomorrow. We are now in September 12th, I believe. Wait, yeah, I don't know what the date did. I have to check. But my point is, that's my pointers to Crawford. That's what I believe he should do. The thing is, he still runs the risk of getting hit, and I don't think he has the resistance, or he's never felt anything like what he's gonna feel on the night of the fight. And I think that even if he does employ the tactics that I am saying for him to employ, I think he still runs the risk of losing the fight. That's why it's so hard for Terence Crawford. When it comes to Canelo, I think there's still risk for Canelo to lose the fight. He could very well lose the fight. And the main thing he's going to lose it, the main way he could lose it is by decision. To try to engage in a tit for tat versus a guy who likes tit for tat is a recipe for disaster for a guy like Canelo. Okay, now what Canelo has to do is not engage in a tag you're it type thing. If he engages in a tag you're it, he might lose the fight by decision. You get what I'm saying? So that is not what I recommend Canelo. And it's very hard to get a competitive mind not to engage into a tit for tat. And I know what you guys are thinking. As tit for tat it means you hit me, I hit you. No. It means trying to immediately get your lick back. That's what it means. Which is what Terence Crawford does all the time. The reason he gets away with it is because he's more athletic than most of the people he's ever faced. With anybody he's ever faced, he's always been more athletic, and he's always been bigger than all of them. So, it's always been easy for Terence to get away with that. On the other hand, Canelo's never been the fastest. He's never been the strongest. He's never been the biggest or the longest or pause, anything like that. So he's always has had to use skill, patience, and intelligence to beat most of his opponents. And I know that sounds like that's not the case, because for the majority of his career, he's been looked at as a brute that just walks forward and punches people. But there's a certain level of patience and a certain level of skill the intelligence that takes. The number one sign that you're an intelligent being is patience and the ability to outlast your opponents. That is how humans in general beat most of the animal kingdom. We weren't the strongest, we weren't the fastest, we weren't the strongest, or we weren't gifted with claws, with long knives in our hands. But what we did have was a patient mind and the ability to outlast most of our opponents. And these are the two things that Canelo has, and that has helped him throughout every one of his big career fights. So, guys, that's what I think Canelo should do. And I think he should, and I think he's going to do it, because that's really what he does. It's very rare that he engages in a tit for tat against his opponents. I think the only time that happened was against Floyd Mayweather, and he was unable to beat Floyd Mayweather because he engaged in a tit for tat with him. And Canelo beat him at the game of tag. He just beat him. That's what he did. He beat him at a game of tag. And what Canelo needed to realize is that you don't play tag against somebody that's weaker than you. Sometimes it's better to let him get some of his stuff off, so you could get one good shot in and put money in the bank for the later rounds. If he would have done that against Floyd Mayweather, he would have beat Floyd Mayweather in probably like the later rounds, like 9, 10, or 11. Um, but the thing is that Canelo was young, and Canelo would get hit and immediately get his feelings hurt and want to go get his lick back. And Mayweather was anticipating that. And so what he would do is he would hit him with a good shot, smile at him. Canelo would get insulted. He's like, I'm going to get my shit back. And then Mayweather would just go into his little shell, boom, 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 bam, then smile at him again, then look at him, and then boom, hit him with a jab. And then Canelo's like, ah, blah, 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 and block again. You know, it's a game of tag that you're not going to win against a guy who is more skilled than you and has more experience than you. You know, with Terence Crawford, you don't want to do that. Even if Terence Crawford is smaller, if you get into a game of tag with him, he's going to beat you in the game of tag. You see what I'm saying? It's you don't fight the game that the other guy's good at. You know, it's even in warfare. If the other guy is good at guerrilla warfare, you know, what he's going to try to do is attack you and then go hide back into the forest or the jungle, whatever, or the city or the desert, whichever one they live in. You know, so what you do with a guy like that is you don't engage that guy because you're going to lose. You're going to have a lot of casualties and a lot of your men are going to die because they're better at that. That's their game. They're fast, they're quick, and they can move in the forest really fast. So what do? You are patient and you start bombing them with what do they call it, like carpet bombing or whatever. You start bombing them where they live. Boom, 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 pa, pa, pa. That's what nations do, by the way. I'm not advocating for it, or I'm not saying that it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. I'm just telling you this is what happens. You know, when you can't deal with an opponent because you probably trained them in the past in special forces, went over there and trained those guys, and now they know more than you. And now if you go into your Marines are going to get killed because they don't know the stuff that they know. You know, it's just a whole bunch of shit. But anyways, my point is, don't get into a tit for tat, in my opinion, against a guy who that's what they their main game is, tit for tat, like and then move around. He wants you to chase him when he does that. He's like, tag, you're it, ha 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 ha, I'm running, ha ha ha. Nah, just chill, relax. You know he's gonna try to throw that jab, especially at the beginning. Make him miss the jab and make him realize that he can't hit you with that jab. Counter it every once in a while, boom, pop, right? And then look at him too, and then be like, nah, tag now, tag, you're it. You know, and see what he does. Because the thing is, he's trying to insult you with a jab. Canelo knows better than that. Now he does. You know, that's why he doesn't really care about people jabbing him sometimes. He's just, okay, cool. But anyways, that's my advice for both of these guys. I think it's going to be a great fight, whoever wins. You know, whoever wins, I'm really not going to be mad at it, to be honest with you. I think part of the reason I want Canelo to win is because the fan base of Terence is a little bit annoying. But at the same time, I'm not gonna let, you know, other people that are racist get in my head in a sense to where, damn, Terence won, so now these people won. Not really, bro. Like, a long time ago, you know, I decided to not pay attention to hateful people. And if Terence wins, I think there's good things about it too. You know, I think whoever wins is going to be good for the sport, because I do believe Terence may still be fighting even after this fight, even though he said he wasn't. I think money talks, and I think we're still gonna have more fights from him, in my opinion. And when it comes to Canelo, I think for sure he's gonna fight more, because he said it before. He said he's gonna have maybe 10 or 5 more fights, I think, or something like that. So Turki Al Sheikh signed a 5 deal fight with him. So there you go. But anyways, guys, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will catch you guys later.